Greetings, this is Craig Pepin, Project Lead for the Davis Grant. Thank you for listening to this audio recording from the Spring 2024 Competency Fellows Workshop Series. These workshops are funded by a grant from the Davis Educational Foundation, and together with other materials funded by the grant and available on the Competencies website, are designed to help enhance your understanding and learning of Champlain's college competencies. Today's workshop, titled Cultivating Collaborative Classrooms, Strategies for Fostering Student Collaboration, is led by Rachel Hooper, our Collaboration Fellow.
Hi, hello, you all know me. I'm Rachel. I'm the EMC Project Manager. I've been working with students mainly around collaboration and creative technology for over a decade now, and I've learned a few things about it. And I'm hoping to share that with you as part of the Champlain College Competency Workshop sessions. So let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about collaboration. We're going to talk about the dreaded group project and how we might make them better for ourselves. And then we're also going to talk about how we can build collaboration skills in other ways inside the classroom. But before we begin, I want to do a little collaborative exercise with you called Fist to 5. So fist being 0 and 5 figures out being I'm very confident. How confident are you in fostering collaboration? So for those of you online, if you don't want to put your cameras on, you can also just in chat put 0 to 5.
Oh, I gotta find it.
Yeah. So how confident do you think you are right now? All right, 2, 3. So got some 2. So I'm seeing like maybe you'd like some skills and tips on collaboration. Yes, I see. Let me see on screen. Oh yeah, we've got 4. We got some more confident. Yeah, maybe middle of the road, right? Excellent. So this is great. This is a great place to be at. And I want to just before we get into it, talk a little bit about Fist to 5 because it's actually a really easy collaboration tool that you can use in your classroom all the time. And it does a bunch of different things, right? We just established consensus, right? I know where you're at and how you're feeling about it. I'm getting some data, right? And we also just gave the quieter students in the classroom a little opportunity to tell us something, right? Normally in the classroom, we have that one person who will always answer the questions, right? And so we've just avoided that. And I've assessed and I can adjust my strategy as I need to, though I feel pretty confident now that I was like, oh yes, you're in this room because you want to get some skills in collaboration and I don't have to change what I'm doing, but I could if I was in the classroom, right? Plus there's a little self-reflection. You have to ask yourself, how good am I at collaboration? And this is something that students need practice in. And we've also encouraged the class to be active participants, right? And gotten them kind of woken up and accountable to each other. So it's easy and it's fun to do. We're going to do it again at the end too. So, I can catch my KPIs to get some data. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and dive a little deeper into what collaboration is and start thinking about it in terms of competencies. So simply put, collaboration is the act of working with someone or a collection of people to produce or create something, which is really easy, right? Right. But if we care about the outcome of said collaboration, right, it becomes a lot more complex, right? If we didn't care and it was just working together, then I could be done with this workshop right now and we'd be done. But it's a little bit more complex. And if we want collaboration to be successful, we kind of want to consider a few of these things here. The first thing, we have to agree what it is that we're making and what success looks like. And that's actually really challenging. One person might think that we've agreed, right? This happens to me with clients all the time. I'm like, oh, we definitely know what we're both making. And then I get into it with them and I realize we want very different things. So this is super challenging, right? We also want to make sure that everyone feels included, right? That everyone has roles. And we want to make sure that there's a diversity of thought, right? If we're just going to have one guy's idea and that's what we're going to run with, then why bother all the collaboration? And we have to have a good communication strategy, especially when things go poorly, and that's challenging for all of us. So that's a lot of stuff to pack, lots of small skills to pack into learning experiences, especially when we're dealing with our age group, right? 19 to 24, their brains are still wiring, they're still practicing a lot of the things that we're teaching them. So asking them to both get mastery in what you're teaching and collaborate effectively on top of that is a huge challenge. And at the same time, it's really important that we do collaborative learning, right? I think we've seen here at Champlain, there's been a lot of focus on starting to think about multidisciplinary collaboration in the classroom more often. And this is really important because research shows that educational experiences that are active, social, contextual, engaging, and student-led lead to deeper learning. And students can experience a lot of benefits from this approach. They can develop higher level thinking, they can improve their communication skills, self-management and leadership skills can get developed. They're hopefully being exposed to an increase in understanding in diverse perspectives and an increase, hopefully, of student retention, right? If they have buy-in and they feel valued in their group, they're more likely to stay. And hopefully also with collaborative learning, students and faculty are interacting more and in a more integral way or interactive way, excuse me. And, hopefully if we're doing it right, the collaborative learning is also preparing them for real life social and employment situations, which is the bulk of my work at UNC. So great. Let's just shove all this in a group project and walk away, right? I'm sure, as you know, group projects are really useful to bring experiential learning into the classroom, but we also know that they're very challenging to evaluate and grade and likely not helping students build collaboration skills like we hope they would. And side note, this is clearly not a true representation of Champlain faculty because we never actually show up that well dressed to a meeting. So group projects don't really create better collaborators, okay? And while most of the time, right? And while they may seem like a good way to improve skills, they also can fail to build authentic collaborative practices unless we're doing them in a really intentional way. And you see these two girls here getting an A for the rest of the team, right? It's kind of the big scenario, right? That one or two people are doing all the work, a couple of people are posting, it can be a little problematic at times. And I want, let's take a quick break and open up for a little discussion here. What do you think contributes to poor collaborative practices in group projects? And for folks online, feel free to just go ahead and turn off your mics and say what you think, or anybody in the room.
Lack of any real project management.
Yes, absolutely, for sure.
I'm clarity about who's doing what.
Yes, absolutely.
I think there's, you're dealing with different personalities, different approaches to life and schoolwork, and
that's right.
Different work ethics. I mean, there's
so many, right? Like
so
maturity level.
Right.
Two people in the group might be like really good friends, and the other two might not know them.
And that it's also there's fear of sometimes of how you're going to stack up. If others, and even in the highly specialized programs that even at the junior and senior level, when game teams, where you still see this, but people sometimes are hesitant to get their work out because they have some sort of doubt, whether it's imposter syndrome or whether it's justified because they escaped through or whatever. But nobody wants to be seen as the weak link, and so that.
Right, and so once they feel like they might be the weak link, they might engage in a little self-sabotage, right? And start not procrastinating, not showing up, all that stuff. How about from online? What do you think might make a poor collaboration in groups?
Maybe just skill levels are so vastly different.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. You've got some people coming into your class that have really got much higher developed levels of maturity and of the ability to work in teams. And some folks are just beginning to do that in practice, right? And also in your class, you might have somebody, whatever your subject is, that is just a little bit more knowledgeable in that subject as well, right? And so that can create a real lack of or uneven roles in the group. Let's see what we got here. Survey says, I think we covered a lot of these, right? Unequal contribution, lack of accountability, procrastination, just sometimes just like not understanding the objective. How many of us have spent all summer building what we think is the excellent class, really detailed syllabus, really good project management. Like we've built all the stuff. And no matter, and you've got students in the group working really earnestly too, and they're still just like not understanding the objective or understanding what you want them to do, right? And sometimes instructor oversight, like, I don't know about you, but I've definitely just like set it and forget it and been like, oh, I didn't check in with this group. And now I've actually see that one person has done this and it's too late. You know, like it's too late. I've decided to grade as a group. Uh-oh, people scooted through and now I have to make an ethical choice about what I'm going to do here, right? Happens. I mean, honestly, like, how can we, you know, as faculty, we can't actually control all of these variables, right? Like we're just human beings moving through space, you know, but we can try our best to start building best practices into our group projects. And that's kind of where we're going here. So this isn't just my ideas here, you know, these are basically group project best practices outlined by many key universities and people who study collaboration. And so the first one is we need to devote time to actually building teamwork skills in the classroom. We assume that students already know how to do teamwork. They certainly did group projects in high school, right? So, you know, if they did it then surely they can do it now. But like we mentioned earlier, you know, they may not have developed the effective teamwork skills. Most of them need to learn how to work with others to do things that they might already do well individually. And I would argue that even if they're competent on an individual level, there's a vast skill gap there, right? Some people might be fine managing their time. For other people, this might be really challenging for them to do on an individual level. And then what we're asking them to do is then go do that and communicate that within a group, right? So hard. Also, another thing that students just really struggle with, right, is to really assess the nature and difficulty of the task. And I know, Bob, you know, students scoping out their tasks in game, right? Like they think something's going to take them a half an hour. It's going to take them 3 days. They don't know because they've never done it before, right? So they're overly confident, right? They don't know how to break tasks down into stages or steps. They don't know how to necessarily plan a strategy. They can hardly manage their own time, you know? So we have to acknowledge that when we set up group projects. And generally the way I like to deal with this is I really build the teamwork skills in class leading up to the group project in small ways. I also tend to, especially in like first or second year classes, I make sure all that group work is happening in the classroom so I can monitor it. I don't send them off to go do the work. I do the flipped classroom model. They get all the stuff from me online, and then classroom is just us working together as a group. I don't assume, and even students I know that are really good at teamwork, you know, I make sure that I'm checking in on the process and I'm looking at the documents, seeing how things are going.
All of my double period classes do that group work in class.
Yeah.
And you're right, it works much better.
It does. Yeah. And it's easier for you too, because, you know, then you're keeping tabs on it in real time and it's not the end of the semester and you're like, oh, wow, I messed up. Nobody, you know, one person did all that work, right? Another thing you want to do here is create some clear roles. So, create interdependence, right? So if collaboration is your goal, you want to structure the project so students have to actually depend on one another, right? And there's a couple ways you can do it. Let's say you're created a semester-long research project for a history course, and you're assigning students distinct roles within their group. So maybe one student's responsible for initiating and sustaining all the communication in the group. Maybe another is coordinating schedules and organizing meetings. Maybe another is, you know, recording ideas and taking notes. And then, you know, the fourth one is cracking the whip and making sure everybody's, you know, aligned to the timeline and things are getting together. And then you can rotate those roles so nobody's really stuck in them, right? But if everybody knows what they're doing on the project, they have a special distinct role, it avoids people just sort of sitting there wondering what they should be doing and giving other people their responsibilities. And another way that we can do this, creating interdependence, right, is to, and it's actually what we're going to do in this activity, funnily enough, is we're going to limit the resources to compel students to share critical information and materials. So what do I mean by that? So if you have like, let's say you created a short-term design project you can give the students a limited amount of materials, tape, scissors, string, and paper, and you can give them some instruction on what you want them to do. Build a castle in the architectural style of brutalists using these things, right? So I've given them a complex challenge, I've given them limited resources, and now they have to depend on each other. They can't actually go into roles and be like, okay, I'm going to be the scissor person, you're going to be the tape guy. They have to figure it out and they have to communicate, right? So it just
Scissors guy's pretty sharp.
Yeah, I knew I could count on you for good fun. Such a good one. So now on the side, I want to ask you, what do you think? Actually, I'm sorry, I started laughing about your pun. I think I skipped a couple things here. So creating interdependence, backing it up, limiting resources. Oh yes. So these two are actually really important. So I'm glad I took a minute to go back. I want to build individual accountability in the project. We actually do this pretty good in game production because in theory, sure, Bob, for those of you on camera, Bob's like, I don't know. But we build in group projects, but there's lots of ways that we're assessing them individually. And so this could look like having them take quizzes. This could look like independent write-ups. This could look like journaling or blogging. That's how we've always sort of handled it in game production, giving them time to reflect and talk about their role specifically and what they've been working on. And this also helps you monitor the students' learning. And it helps prevent the free rider phenomenon, right? Like I can see when people are free riders because they're not turning in that document, they're not able to really talk about what they're doing. I can also see if they're actually mastering the skills and achieving the outcomes that we were hoping that they would under the hood. So whenever I do a group project, I want to have that kind of written assessment for them. And also, and this can be a little controversial, incorporating self and peer assessment. I think one, it's just so important to be able to have skills and self-assessment, right? And I think students really need to develop those skills while they're here at college. But the part that can get a little awkward for them is peer assessment, right? They don't want to get anyone in trouble. In fact, a lot of times it's like pulling teeth. So like if somebody's really upset in a group, like getting to the bottom of it and figuring it out is often really challenging because they don't want to snitch on their teammate, right? So if you can kind of just make a transparent peer review assessment, this could be in a form. One of the things we do in game is we do peer assessments several times in the semester, and then it's not anonymous, so you're going to talk about what the problems are. And then, you're going to look at it. Like some people are going to give really good feedback to their peers, others may not, but really we're getting them comfortable with the idea that they're forming relationships around accountability and dependability in a group, and they can't just do whatever. They have to actually be dependable and accountable to their group. Otherwise, they might not get the best peer feedback. There's gentler ways to do that, but I think bringing it into group projects makes sense.
You also talk about separating the personal from the professional, really. It's like helping them to understand that critiquing their work within a particular context is not the same as critiquing the person doing the work.
Exactly.
That's a difficult task, but one that is obviously necessary.
And it helps them normalize that. And then also it provides them a professional practice and helps them understand that like, oh, I'm not just doing this one group project with these people. I'm actually building a professional relationship with these people, right? Just not always, it doesn't go perfectly, but it's worth thinking about. So open discussion part 2. What's worked well in group projects in your classroom? Anybody have some success stories? Anybody have some nightmare scenarios that they'd like to get off their chest? This could easily be a therapy session.
I do have a success story. I have nightmares too, but in fact in the same class, but
often the case.
So the success story, I think, revolves around giving the students agency and the ability to make a choice about what they want to focus on or who they want to focus on. So in my integrated marketing communication class, I gave students the opportunity to choose an organization that they wanted to build an IMC campaign for.
Nice.
And so we had essentially, it was 2, but kind of 3 different options. And so I was able to have the students self-select. Now there was some funkiness that happened because there's always funkiness.
Yes.
But there was a group of students that was really excited about one of the organizations, and that showed in there. You know, they're particularly excited. They were just a high functioning group too. So I don't know.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And even if there's funkiness, right? Because collaboration is a practice. Not every group is going to be able to do that. But at least also if other teams are struggling, they can kind of see the model of like, oh, look at the team that's really excited and is passionate buy-in. How's that working out for them?
Yeah.
Right? That's great.
The ones I have been successful or more or less successful has been teams that have had good communication established from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and they and their parameters. The limitations to me really are, if I'm going to get any success out of my group projects, I have to frame them to give them agency and choice, but only within parameters. You know, you can have spinach, you can have broccoli, that can be for kids, but that I find generates the most creativity and the most conversation that's productive, rather than a blank hey, you see they go off and wander. But you know, so much of it is random too in these classes. If you're putting together teams and you don't really know the students super well. So, but I think that communication is, if I had to pick one thing, or the teams that communicate well with each other and from the very beginning tend to be more successful.
Yeah.
Even if they're not the smartest, brightest, most creative at first, if they communicate well, things are much easier down the road.
Yeah. Excellent. Absolutely. I think you're right. And I think, you know, for the rest of them that maybe aren't great at communication, right? You've got that one team that's great, maybe the other one's not. You know, you can identify that and help the other teams with better communication. You know, I use templates a lot, documented templates that kind of break the script down for people piece by piece, because again, how can we assume that they know how to communicate professionally in a team setting? This is, again, I know a lot of adults. I know some of our colleagues that don't actually communicate well in a group team setting, right? So helping them out. And then the other important thing you said, Bob, is the broccoli and carrots, right? Providing some constraints, right? Creative constraints are really useful, because then everyone's very aware of what the boundaries are. We can pick 1, 2, or 3. We don't have to like explore the world of ideas together and then duke out which one we're gonna choose. Right?
And you may want that in some settings, but most of the time, no.
Yeah, and if you do want it in those settings, you want to kind of like have a process, right, to get people to the feasible and viable choices. We'll talk a little bit about that. How about from online? Does anybody have any group project success stories that you'd like to share?
I have just one point about illness. You know, if a lot of illness erupts in the class, that's a thing, right?
Yes.
Teams of 3, one person is ill, and that repeats in several sections. It's very difficult to come up with maybe a grounded policy for that. That's what I'm struggling with right now, actually. So it's
well, I'm dealing with that same problem all the time with the prevalence of our ability to hook in synchronously. And as I do most of the smaller group projects in class, well, if somebody is ill but not, they're mostly more concerned about contagion than they are they're laid up totally.
Yes.
Then I get the group to communicate with them, they'll loop them in through Google Meet or Zoom, and they can work on the collaborative project from home. It's not ideal, but at least it's better. And I find it's a really good litmus test for the students who reach out and try to do that, and actually, when they are sent the link, respond. And those who do not, it's a very interesting indicator as to when you come times to for assessment.
Exactly.
But it's not perfect, but it's better than it was at least.
Yeah, I think, you know, asynchronous and online learning, there's a lot of tools that we can use now. And I agree with you. It's so challenging. And we live in Vermont, so it's like, you know, we get the Champlain, we get snowstorms, all sorts of issues that can break up the team. But having an online component is really useful. right? Some kind of online documentation. What I always say to my students when they email me and say they're going to be absent or whatever, or if they don't show up, I email them and I say something along the lines of like, here's what we covered. You're going to need to follow up with your team, like email them and ask them how far they got. And then I say to the team, hey, so-and-so is absent today. Make sure you save a chunk for them and make sure you reach out to them and make sure they understand how far you got. Right. So do they necessarily do that? And sometimes people are out for weeks and then you just kind of have to figure it out. Right. Like I just had to redo my entire timeline because I realized we had the solar eclipse on Monday, which is my class. And then Thursdays are my studios. And then yesterday, nobody showed up because of the snow. So now now I have to redo everything and readjust guest speakers and all of that stuff. So it's not perfect, but that's the thing with collaboration is it's just kind of always a little messy because again, we're smushy little meat sacks floating through space and, we're pretty vulnerable as creatures. Not to make it weird, but could I not? So let's talk about some other ways to build collaboration skills in the classroom that aren't necessarily centered around group projects, because I firmly believe that in order to build collaboration skills, you oftentimes don't need to have group projects in your class. And because of some of the things we mentioned, they're really tricky to get right. And group projects, if done right, if you're really focusing on collaboration, it's just like a huge heavy lift for teachers. And if you're very busy, you've got a lot of work to do, you've got to really think about the scope of that work as you're designing your classes. So here are some just real small things that you can bring into your classroom. And I'm going to do 3, and then I'm going to show you some of my personal examples, what I've done, and then 3 more, and then we'll do a fun little activity. All right. So inviting students to work with you to create a shared values and vision for this semester. I do this before I break into the syllabus. And I basically say, hey, this isn't just a classroom, right? This is a studio. Maybe we're an ad agency. Maybe we're like historians, right? Working collaboratively together. I kind of give us a little role play scenario or mimic some kind of real life circumstance. And I say, what do we want? What are our values as a studio? What do we really think is important? How do we really want to do this together? And I actively involve them in that conversation or have them write some stuff out and then we all talk about it. I like to assign roles to students and simulate real life scenarios. For the ludologists in the room, right? Huizinga's magic circle, when we create a play space, it's something that we're all really comfortable with, right? Playing and using our imagination. It's easier for us to approach those problems psychologically because we've kind of taken the pressure off. We're not saying, okay, this is work, and if you don't do it right, you're fired. We're saying, let's pretend that, we are an ad agency. Let's pretend that we are a studio.
Craig does that with the trial of Galileo.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
What do you do with that?
Well, we used to when it was still, it was basically an extended role-playing exercise. Where students would take on roles in 17th century Italy.
That's great.
Galileo.
Amazing.
And some would be supporting him. Others would be, well, wait a minute, there's moving too fast. And so they would take on roles, especially those who disagreed with Galileo.
Mm-hmm.
It would obviously not correspond to what they, for the most part, actually thought about whether the sun revolves around the earth or vice versa. So
That's so cool. And I bet they had like a much richer, like experiential learning moment there versus writing a report about Galileo.
Oh yeah,
right?
100%.
Nice. So having those roles, having simulated scenarios, they're fun. And I like using them quite a bit. And another one you might be familiar with, Think, Pair, Share. This is really a processing tool. Everyone in our classrooms process at different levels, right? At different rates. Some people are really good verbal processors. Some people are not. But I want to include everyone collaboratively in the discussion. So oftentimes when I really want people to do some deep thinking and answer some questions, I'll give them a prompt. I'll have them think about it. I'll have them write it down. And then I'll pair them up in small groups to discuss. If there's a collective choice that needs to be made, we'll write down all of our stuff on Post-it notes and look for patterns on the board and see if we can come to a consensus, right? But what we're really doing is giving people time to process, practice writing their ideas, and then communicating those ideas in the group. I'll show you some examples from my classroom just to model some transparency and vulnerability. So this is from my EGD 320 class way back for the New York Times, old deck. And I asked them, how might we create a vibrant collaborative culture? And we talked a little bit about like how we have control over the culture in our studio, right? We might not necessarily have control of the culture at Champlain or in the game studio, but here in our personal studio, we get to decide what we value. And I had them all write what they thought in Post-it notes, and then we put them all on the board, and we looked for the repeats and the patterns, and we were able to talk about it and then build this next slide deck piece and do this before we did our syllabus, right? So now, it's just kind of a sneaky way to kind of get them to decide what you already want out of it, right? So I want them to understand that it's okay to take risks in our studio and it's okay to fail in our studio. We have a nice conversation about how we can actually be dependable. And sometimes being dependable means like appropriately scoping the work, right? Because sometimes they'll be like, yes, I'll do that and that and that. And they've got 5 other classes. They want to be dependable, but they don't know how to scope their tasks appropriately. And then they fail and they feel really bad about it, right? So how do we do this realistically and healthily? How can we be optimistic collaborators, right? How do we make each other successful by giving good ideas and good feedback? Team 1 is sharing their game, and the rest of the teams are giving them good constructive feedback. And assuming positive intent, if they're giving kind of negative feedback, we know that it's really, sorry, API there, assume positive intent. We want them to, feedback and critique isn't necessarily bad, right? It can help you make your project stronger. And as a studio, we want that. Yeah, right.
Does API stand for again?
Assume positive intent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, API.
New initialization.
Yes, it's a fun one, right?
That's an application programming.
Right.
What, drivers here today?
I think that was actually left over because I think that was one of the students showed me that one while we were doing this. So I kept it in there. And then, showing, not telling, right? When we show up to update that we're bringing sketches or prototypes and that we're, getting feedback off of those, right? So then I was able to pretty much set up the expectations for teamwork on day 1. They're not glazing over the syllabus, right? They feel like, okay, this is my space. We're all up buy-in. Now we're ready to go. This semester ends up being really successful. Here's a sample from one of my mock design briefs. Actually, this semester, I'm working with graphic design students, and we're using a design fiction methodology where we imagine what it's like in 2054. And our client is actually the Biomaterials Research Lab at UVM. They make lab-grown meat. And so we're having the graphic design students build diegetic prototypes about what they think cultured meat will look like in 2054, which is a pretty heady thing to do in 8 weeks with a bunch of seniors on their last semester. I've learned some things about timing with this one. But you can see here, just in this early step in this small piece of a workshop. Also, this is a design brief, but really what it is just step-by-step instructions of how I want them to work as a team. You can see that I've assigned little tiny roles here, right? One's the research lead, one's the content curator, one's the narrative builder. And I switched those roles out so they all have a way to work together without having to talk about who's doing what. Challenging sometimes, but also really valuable. Here's another example. This is an EMC example, actually. When I started working there, I started a 1st and 2nd year employment opportunity for students around collaboration. So, I'm teaching them human-centered design skills and agile methodologies, under the hood, but really what they're working on is solving problems around accessibility at Champlain College. So, this is something that students feel very passionate about. They want to help and do a good job. So they're very motivated, but then they're also learning. I'm also teaching freshmen agile development, but they don't really know that completely, right? So here's a good example of that think, pair, share that I do with them. So here's this is a group activity where you basically just write words that you think of when you're thinking about this question. So what words come to mind when you think about accessibility on Canvas? So they have their Post-it notes, one word per Post-it note, nice and big. And then we put them all on the whiteboard, and then we discuss the words with the group. So this is helping them learn how to think about things and then discuss things and start to make choices collectively as a team.
Can I ask about, so where's the pair part of this?
Yeah, so you can, for this one, for Think, Pair, Share, this is like the pairing is the group itself.
Okay. So it's not necessarily individual two and then the larger.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm being very literal.
In this particular example, however, what I took off when I was like, there's too many slides, I took off. There's this other example where you can do crazy. It's where you fold a piece of paper into 8 cells, you got 8 minutes, you prototype. And normally what I do with that in a classroom setting is we'll do that, we do the 8 minutes, and then I have them turn to their partner and pass the papers and see if they can figure out what the other person is doing and talk about it, and then vote for the strongest, most feasible thing. So, you can be flexible with it, but I think always like giving people time to think, giving them some brainwriting times, and then discussing either in a team or a larger group is a good recipe for success. So here are a few more. I mentioned this already, but it's, to me, I think it's so boring, but templates are like the key to all of this. Like I have every kind of running meeting note templatized. I have every kind of retrospective templatized. And I give that to my students in their team folder. I use Google folders and docs quite a bit. I also use virtual collaboration tools quite a bit. So Google Jams or Jamboards, which are going away soon. They're going away in October, unfortunately. But I've discovered a new one that I like actually better called FigJam. It's part of Figma. And you can actually get a free educational account using Figma. And FigJam has all of those things. Plus, Figma is a tool to kind of build prototypes and mockups that can kind of simulate some interactivity. So it's also, I'm trying to get students connected to that just because I want them to build competencies in Figma because it's
put some of those templates in the shared resources for the competency.
I absolutely am. And they're all linked actually in this deck as well. So anybody who emails me, I can send this to you, and they're all in the speaker notes. So using those tools are really effective. And again, this is kind of what makes it, when you've got somebody who's absent too, or has decided to be online, it's like, it's not going to interrupt the process now because we're all doing it online anyways. And then it also just, it's nice for them to have online documents that they can collaborate on all together. And then also sneaky teacher in me, like when I have them use, templates in Google Docs and everything, I can see who wrote what when.
Version
history, right? Yeah. So when somebody's like, oh yeah, I worked on that, I'm like, well, let's take a look. Like how? Where? Show me where. Make it make sense, kid. So that's the other benefit to using online templates and stuff, And I was just like, super nice, super sneaky. And then finally, low stakes collaboration activities before high stake activities, right? And I do this at the EMC all the time. Like, for example, I had students just finish a brilliant 1-year project with the VSO doing a motion graphic animation. But they were also doing projection mapping. And they were also using a software called Touch Designer. None of them have ever used any of that before. They've never projected using projection mapping software. And they've never done a year-long project collaboratively, right? So instead of tossing them right into that, the first semester that I worked with them, I had them design some projection mapping pop-ups around the community. Low stakes, no symphony orchestra with 150 people. And they were able to figure out how they worked as a team. They were able to figure out how to use projection mapping software. And they were able to do it in a way that didn't feel really threatening to them. So anytime that if we know we're going to do a group project at the second half of the semester, then, bringing in small, low stakes collaboration activities that are fun and enjoyable. So they enjoy the practice, right? If we can make them as fun as possible and show them why and how they're learning those skills, it creates a better scenario when we're actually like, okay, now this is half of your grade. Don't mess it up, right? So let's take a look at some examples here. Here's a Jamboard. And you can see here, this is from a 101 class, EGD Production 101. So we're trying to teach them how to use user stories to create different goals for the sprint and then tasks, which is very hard to do generally, but especially if you're teaching it to first-year students, it's often just kind of a bit of trial and error. So you can see they've got these things as a team. I want to complete documentation. As a player, I want to collect items. As a player, I want to traverse levels. These are all from your backlog. And now they're building out what they think that should look like. The programmer is going to add a git ignore to the repo, or the designer is going to iterate on a napkin sketch. So once we sort of have those goals together, right, we went from this very broad idea to how we're going to achieve that step by step. And then underneath that, I can give them step-by-step tasks. Because again, scoping and communicating step-by-step tasks in a group is very hard to do. It's hard for students to learn it. So here's a sample of a team retrospective template. You can see this, like here I'm leaving them some notes. Having people at the end of a milestone or a phase or a sprint, or maybe during midterms, just double checking and saying, hey, what's going really well? Maybe it's just in the classroom. You can just, you don't necessarily need a template, but you can just say, hey, what's going really well? What's not working? And normally when I get to the what's not working, everyone zips right up, right? Because they don't want to talk about bad things. So then I'm often like, well, I forgot to send you guys blah, 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 blah. So maybe I should have left myself a note, huh? I start with myself. I'm like, well, did anybody else have any communication issues? Did anybody else struggle to get something done? And I'll sit and wait until we get the conversation going. Sooner or later, a little bit of a pressure cooker. That's right. Yeah, we've been doing this long enough, right? Like we're all actually, the pregnant pause can last all day if we needed to, right?
Very zen,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I literally fold my hands back here and I just sit and I wait, sit in the silence, right? And really, once I get them doing that, see if we use 3 to 5 things. Can we say 3 things that aren't going well right now? And then once they do that, you can almost see the relief. They're like, oh, there, I did it. I said a negative thing, and look, everyone's fine. We're all no one died, right? Then we can say, all right, well, if communication was bad, how can we make it better this week? Well, yeah, that way we're not calling anyone out. We're not saying, so-and-so didn't show up for a meeting. We're saying, okay, well, not everyone showed up to the meeting. What are we going to do this week? And it gives everyone the chance to say, okay, there were some failures, but they're recoverable. And now we have a plan to move forward. And those are, again, just really hard skills for students to do on their own, privately, right? So I do it in the classroom most of the time. And then also, here's a good example. I like silly.
I love it.
Uh-oh. So yeah, now you know. Now you got it.
It's like one of those things on Survivor.
That's right. That's right. So this is a really low stake activity. It's fun. I think it might be an icebreaker for those of you who love or hate icebreakers. And it really highlights the importance of communication and teamwork. Now, unfortunately, for those of you online, /fortunately, I couldn't actually figure out how to mimic this for you in the time that I was thinking about it. So we get to watch everybody here do it for our entertainment. So if I might volunteer the 4 of you, how convenient. There's literally an exercise for 4 people. So we're going to go ahead here. I'm going to get the...
we can put it in center here.
Well,
and I turn this.
We wanted to have a little room for people to get, and also look to get these guys here so they can launch. Yes, there you go.
Wander about.
Yes, yes. Now, the way this works is you get 2 on side and 2 on the other. Oh no, I didn't make a string for myself. I guess I can't help you. I'll take off the cap. It's a Sharpie, so we mean business here. So everybody takes a piece of the string. You're going to, no one is allowed to touch the marker directly, okay? So you have about 5 minutes to draw, but you get a couple minutes to think about it first. And what I want you to do is draw a picture of Chauncey, the beaver.
Chauncey? I couldn't do that on my
You
own.
can use basic shapes. We're not going to hang this up in the art gallery.
Oh.
But you now have 5 minutes to make Chauncey.
All right. Chauncey's a what?
A beaver.
Beaver.
Yes.
Rodent. So
So-
a rodent
Got
Two circles.
Ears.
Big circle body. I'm thinking two circles.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna do the face, actually.
Yeah, do the face.
Ooh, that's a
Little
good, that's the
ears.
face, yeah.
little
Ears,
Well, I think that's complicated.
two buck teeth.
Sure.
Right.
The buck teeth are key. Can we
Okay.
just see if we can do the
The head.
perimeter?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
might scope out what we are not.
Yeah.
Like appearance of
Let's do it.
scoping.
Like draw a face.
I might actually have a Chauncey sticker. Oh no, I
Rachel, somebody might have to hold the paper.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
I think.
And then I'll
Rachel needs to do
also, I'm also gonna hit start. Are you ready?
it. Yeah.
Wait,
All right. What are we doing?
We're gonna do
we're
a
gonna
circle.
try to do
Okay,
a
we're trying
circle.
to
So we'll
at the
start
top,
down by
go
Yeah.
you.
clockwise,
Go
right?
clockwise
Yeah.
towards Craig.
Yeah.
Bob,
Okay. Ready?
Clock.
Okay. So I
Are we
think
doing it here, not up there?
That's gonna. I think we're gonna go like this.
it's gonna go around this way.
Oh, we're doing it really
Big.
big
Yeah.
circle.
So I think you
Okay.
need to pull your
A little
Okay.
circle
out
can be really
straight
hard.
because you're from the top, but it's
Yeah.
out like this.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
All right, here we go. So I'm
So go down. I'm gonna pull it, and then Bob, you start to pull more.
Curvatures.
I feel like I'm very
Yeah. And
Oh my bad.
I want to relinquish
now.
control.
Bob,
Wait,
take it
we
your
go
way a
back.
little
let's
bit.
go back.
Was that on me?
Okay, and then I
Okay.
didn't. Now I have to start pulling it.
Yeah.
Okay,
down,
good.
down, down.
I can relax.
There we
Okay.
go. There we go.
You need to.
No, I can't relax. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't have good hand eye coordination.
All right, there we go.
This is
We're
hard,
there.
isn't it? It's really
gotta
hard.
go down.
Why?
I think if you just pull back and stay where you are,
You stay where you are.
drop it down. It's all about tension. Drop that down.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Now pull a
You
little
start
harder.
pulling, Yeah.
Okay. I'm coming my
There
way.
we go. Okay, I think we have the.
Turning. And now you need to
Oh.
start bringing it
Yeah,
back.
You
I'm
start
back in
pulling.
control.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
So,
Not
You
bad.
got the
all
circle.
right. Wow, that's fabulous.
That's
This is
surgery.
her.
That's
Ears-
just surgery.
ears
display,
next.
right?
Ears are little.
Ears. So this is the top of the face up there.
Oh,
this
it
is the
is?
top.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
top.
good
Well,
thing that
not
we.
from my perspective.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
from my perspective either. So that's
Typical alpha male behavior.
Right.
You know.
Okay.
We can
Okay.
make this. So this is the top.
Yeah.
we-
Well, there's more room for the ears up there, right?
Yeah.
well, that's
Okay.
true.
All right.
Okay, so
can
here
you
we go.
drop
Are we
So we're
thinking
going-
something like that?
Dropping
Yeah.
down.
Drop
Okay.
it down. So you
Now that's pull right to its ear.
Yeah.
Ear.
And then,
And then
It helps me to make sense.
Oh.
I'm sorry about that. Can we
Yeah,
go
there we
back?
go. Yeah.
there we go.
And then I'll take it. I got it over
Okay.
here.
Oh, sorry.
You
There
gotta
we
keep
go.
it. You gotta keep the tension.
Okay.
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 Bob,
go.
that's all you. Pulling. I think you gotta go down. You guys gotta pull it. Keep it
Yeah,
down.
keep it down.
Yes. Oh,
Step back.
it's kind of well. Pull it back. Here we go.
There,
We don't
there.
want to do that.
That's fabulous. Okay.
I will.
What do I do? I'm always.
Yeah, we
Right
need.
here, right there.
You need me to.
You're good. No, just I would just go right like that.
Okay.
And there's gonna be some gradual. Bring it down a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna come towards you, right, Scott?
I'm pulling.
And now
I'm gonna arc it that way. And now it's all you, Craig. Bring it home. Oh!
Eyes for eyes.
Righty.
That's kind of like me.
Or should we do the teeth first?
Yeah, let's do the teeth. They're the defining feature.
They are
Oh, gosh.
rectangular, which is nice.
Okay, exactly. So we're gonna come towards me, right?
Okay.
Ready?
I got it. Oh, toward me.
And then
Yeah, what?
the
Wait,
one
wait.
back towards you a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Here we go.
Bob,
now
this is
down
gonna be
towards
if you ever
me.
said this
Down
one.
towards
Oh,
me.
Oh, okay, we're doing the second one. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's go back
Yeah,
across the
that's
top. Let's bring it across the top.
Across
Yeah, that's what I was going. There we go.
Yeah.
Now see we get some
That
eyes.
is not
Just
bad
need
at
some
all.
eyes.
I think we're done. All right. Which eye?
Oh no.
This eye
circles.
first?
We're not great at circles.
Okay.
So
What
we're
if
gonna
he's
try
sleepy?
circles.
Sure. Just so.
This is a diva that's had some fall on hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are doing
Okay,
circles.
let's do clockwise again, which
Okay.
you're jetting towards.
Me,
Towards you,
Yeah.
Jen, yeah.
Barry.
Very sorry.
That's okay.
He's at that in counter with,
Up, see.
Okay,
Yeah,
now you,
sorry.
Scott.
Okay, I got it. I'm pulling.
All right.
Actually,
Let's try the other one.
Okay.
Clockwise again.
So it starts with me.
I'm starting with
This guy's been hitting the
IPAs too
Down.
hard. There, now your way. Oh, to Craig. Swinging on over
Go,
Bob.
Craig. And
The
Bob.
scooter finishing up.
Come back this way.
Oh, Craig's cleaned up our mess.
Yeah. Oh,
No, that's good.
okay. I think we've created.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, you get the
What about
whiskers
the
in, yeah.
Yeah,
the
so you can do a
whiskers.
couple little
Or
skits,
just-
so you got some time.
Like just not
Whiskers?
I mean, let's do a little tiny.
Oh, do they have
nostril.
whiskers? Not really.
Nostrils. Oh,
Nostrils?
this one's got to get whiskers. So I would do some nostrils.
Yeah, we
Okay.
could do. I mean, can
Couple
they?
more.
Yeah.
That's a nostril. You want to go? Let's
There's a
do
little
2
nostril.
circles right there.
More circles. I was gonna suggest a
We could
non-circle,
all
'cause
just
we've
do
seen better.
just do
Here we
like
go. I don't know what's happening. I'm getting
Random dots
okay.
and stuff.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna call it.
Nice.
Yeah.
With 12 seconds to spare. I
Some
have to
junk
say.
fever, I think.
Oh, really? That was our
That was
2-minute
good.
mark? Or how many minutes?
5 minutes.
Look at that.
Really nice work. I feel
Very
like
good.
Chelsea is the.
That was very entertaining.
Yes.
Okay.
Look at that.
That's a cool
Nice.
exercise though,
Yeah.
because
It is,
it
right?
does require, well, everything you talked about, communication and,
Yeah, and like assumptions. And you can also see, also as a teacher, you can kind of see like who are the people who are like, oh, it's going to be this way, or oh, it's that
Oh,
way.
yeah,
Right? You can kind
right.
of really watch
one
the
person taking over
dynamics.
doesn't do it. You can't, it won't work that way.
Right? Yeah, you literally get one person can't take it over. Right?
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I think they have a fancier setup on there.
Yes, I was going to say, little. They've got circles, and you can also see they've got like 2 strings each, right? Which works great, you know. But also,
Control group.
I'm mean, and I like to make
Make
it even
those, yeah,
more.
3D printers. We can make
Yeah, I was
that.
gonna say we could totally make those. It would be fun to have like some collaboration tools that like lived in a closet here where we could just like pull these out
That's a
just in
good
our
idea.
classroom,
This is perfect. I love it.
right?
Can you imagine having 4 of these and being like,
Yes.
all right, which one's the
Yeah.
best?
I think it
And
would
your
be great.
expectations are real.
Maybe the Champ 101.
Next
let's
division
push on
meetings,
to
guys.
that.
Yeah,
Next division
absolutely.
meeting.
They have, that would be a good Champ 101.
With a $100
Yes,
gift card.
skills.
Yeah, I think if you tried this in CCM, I don't know if anybody would live, but it's gonna be funny.
Exactly. Look, worst case scenario, it goes poorly, but everyone's still having a lot of fun.
That is not bad. I would recognize that as a. Yeah, I think we did a pretty
Yes,
good job.
I really
actually.
think you hit all the main
I think it looks
features,
exactly like,
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that is uncanny.
Yeah.
Uncanny. I feel like I'm actually looking at a beaver in real life. Yeah, amazing. Amazing. So they now, yeah, so communication, teamwork, all of those things. You do a couple of those things, and especially when they're fun. So you're not like, oh, group work, collaboration.
There's no I in beaver, right?
Yeah, there is no I in beaver. Yeah, I feel like this definitely has to be a Champ 101 just because I want to be able to say that.
Yeah.
I'd say one failure. I did not know Barry's name.
Oh, yeah.
So we should have introduced ourselves beforehand.
Right?
And I will sometimes do this in class where I'll have them pair up to introduce each other.
Mm-hmm.
And halfway through it said, so what's your person's last name?
Oh,
I don't know.
right. Yeah.
So they all have a faculty member.
I also
Eight
tried
rounds
a
of
student's third weekend, I offer a prize. Who can name everybody else?
Nice.
And there's some like, I'm never going to do that. But
Right.
there's some are like, within
Got it.
4 weeks, you're going to try as an extra credit for the
Nice.
first person you name every single person in this room.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah, that's a really good technique.
So,
And I
you
think
don't
you're
know
really
if
right.
you
Like
can.
starting out, making sure that people know who are the members of the team. Again, we assume as teachers, like I go through the attendance twice and like lock it in my brain, right?
Yeah.
But then, a lot of people.
I just call them by their ID numbers. It's pretty cool, right?
Yes.
09127 So that's about it. I want to do, I'm a data person, so I want to do this again. So how confident are you at fostering collaboration in the classroom? Yeah.
I've gone up one.
3, 4, 4.
Really? Yeah. So I'll go 3.
How about you online? How confident? Do you feel like you've got some
Always
skills?
feel good.
Okay, I
Getting
see
them to
it.
do anything is trouble.
Excellent. Well, fantastic. That was my whole goal. So I feel like, we're successful. It worked out. Thank you all very
Thank
much
you.
for being here.
Really good.
It's really fun. I don't know how much time we have left, but does anybody have any questions or do we want to talk about anything else regarding collaboration?
I do.
Yeah.
You know how I've heard this term pair share before. Group work and pair share. Is there a benefit to pair? Like I just noticed because I have some seniors in the capstone, the pairs seem to be doing pretty well.
Mhm.
In the past, I've always had a lot more trouble with groups. Bringing more.
Yeah,
to-
right. Yeah.
Are there different? Are there 2 completely different beasts?
I think it really depends on what you want to do. I think for programming, pairing is like a really good idea. I like pairs in classrooms just because it's easier to manage if you want people to really drill into maybe a work or process that they're just trying to like master something really specific, right? For me, the magic number for groups tends to be 3 to 5 people. When I have younger groups, 3 is about where I like to stretch it, or 4. I don't like to bring it into 5. Even with like teams at the EMC, I like to keep it around 5, 6 people max, or break it into multiple teams. Because as you know, Craig, with our team, it's a little bit bigger, but like it's really hard to get them all to be able to meet and then kind of group them up. It works. It's good. And they're older and more mature, so it's like possible. But, you know, I think it really depends on what you're trying to do. But I love groups of 2.
I think what Scott was getting at, I think there is something to that I found at least, is that there is a very different dynamic with 2. And with anywhere like, I also believe that 3 to 5 is a sweet spot. When you have 2, the type of things you can have them do are different generally than the things, at least for me, that it can, 4 or 5, their communication is there. It's right there. And so it's really good for focused tasks. For broader tasks with multiple parts, you need more people, but it becomes exponentially more difficult the more people you add, because then you always guarantee that you're going to have somebody who falls short in some area, or somebody who's done demonstrably higher in some area. And that's where I find the communication part gets to be trouble. It's really about communication. 2 people talking, tough but easier than 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah. And the game history course I taught last fall, where they have really good, because it's games, so there's really good templates and tools, but it's first year students. And so I had the option of, we had the option to do groups of 4, groups of 5. And I'm like, I'm doing groups of 4 because I think groups of 5 is it would reduce my grading load, but it would also increase, I think, pretty substantially.
Even in the senior
difficulty for the first year students to figure out how to get together.
Even in the capstone, when we have much bigger teams because of the number of people, we still have issues of communication, much seniors. And it is, the only thing that saves it there is that because it's very much divided along very specific functional lines. And theoretically, at least by the time they're seniors, people are decent, or at least competent in their functional lines, not always, but they usually are. That provides a framework, a scaffolding that allows for that larger team to interact. People have something to fall back on that they're sure about. I know 3D modeling. I could talk about this. In your other classes, like second year level, third year level, particularly in something like the core classes, you don't have that framework to rely on. So the communication and building the confidence is first steps you're talking about seem to be really, really important. That's what I really need to work on, is to spend more time doing that before getting them into doing things, so that they have something to rely on.
And it's I've split it up a bunch of different ways just to kind of test and see what works best. And I feel like I'm always running like pilot experiments in my classrooms. And this year, what I've been trying, and I like it, is I put all the high achievers who always do good in groups together. And then I put I kind of got the lay of the land from the last teacher and was like, all right, who are all these people, where are their skills and like collaborating? I put the ones that are pretty good collaborators in a group. I put the ones that are not as successful in a group. Normally I used to mix it up, but I was beginning to realize it just puts a lot of onus and responsibility on those high achievers. And then, and also like, they also tend to drive things and not realize that they're driving it. They're kind of unwilling to depend on people that they've already marked as undependable, right? So by kind of splitting them up, I'm able to sit and work directly with the people that need help. I like the people that are pretty self-sufficient and are pretty good at teamwork kind of work, and I don't have to worry about them. Like, for example, James is in my high achieving group with 2 other students. Like, I know he's a competent collaborator. I don't have to worry about him. But there's other people that I'm pretty sure did no work in the last project, and they're all in a group together, and I'm their project manager. Right.
I've tried that back and forth. Same thing. This way, I also do it in terms of diversity and try every combination of there's no silver bullet. But I think you're right. The key there is the interaction with them, and that's why I love doing in a longer class, doing the in-class group work. But it's sort of like almost like a tutorial. I circulate around and work with groups at a pretty intense level, and then you have the groups that aren't as on the surface of, at least, or haven't had a track record of high performance. You can then give them the confidence and work with them, and then you can build more leadership. Otherwise, you're right. The 2 and 3 model, where the 2 good ones take it over. The other 3 just say, "Whoops, I got my AS back here." Back to the sun.
One thing I only did once. This is back in the day when we had the Core 120 group project. We were working with second semester first year students. and I had no idea about their skills coming in.
Right.
And so I forget where I got this tip, but it's like about halfway through the project, you allow each group, if they want to fire one of the team members.
Drama,
And then the
scandaloso.
fired team members need to either find another group to work with or form their own group. And that was a little, I decided it was a little harsh.
Sure.
But it actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah, because like
In
if you
that
don't want to,
particular
you don't want to
class.
get fired. Now you know you can get fired.
You can
Yeah.
get fired. You're out of the group halfway through, and you're still gonna have to do the project. So
We did that in the senior production. So
Right.
half of the year, the people can actually get fired on the group.
Oh, do that.
Doesn't happen very often, but it's just tough balance on in group projects, especially in studio context, because we are an academic institution, and first and foremost, it's a class. So you
Yes.
cannot run it as you would an actual studio,
Right.
where you say, my way or the highway, give them a pink slip or whatever. You can't do that.
Right.
So you have to figure out a way then, how do you get rid of somebody or mitigate damage when you have a student that collapse, that basically is tanking the whole team. There's no perfect solution to that. It's really difficult because
Yeah.
collaboration is hard, as you pointed out.
Very, very hard. And and the thing is like the last thing you want to do is shut somebody down so they never want to do collaboration again or work with people again. And because we never really unpack all the skills and competencies underneath collaboration, especially in high school, I think a lot of people show up to college thinking, oh, I suck at teamwork, or like, oh, gross, I don't want to work in group projects because it always goes poorly. So they're coming in with these mindsets. And if we can, over these 4 years, like gently and carefully untangle some of that and have them do
Well,
some
API,
progress.
assume positive intent helps.
Yeah.
because, I tell students also, it's against most of the seniors, but it works otherwise that if there's a problem with one of your teammates not doing stuff, the vast majority of the time it's indicative of something outside of that. Has not necessarily probably does not mean that they're blowing it off deliberately or not interested in. There's something else going on.
Mhm.
They're humans first and then their team members second.
That's right.
Now, how we can deal with that gets complicated, but trying to get a sense in the mindset of thinking more holistically about what's going on rather than, this is true of the high performers in particular. Well, this person doesn't want to do it. They're stupid.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
Probably not true.
So we're
Thanks, Dad. Yeah,
Thanks,
just say, I
Dad.
think that brings us right to a little over.
So-
Thanks, Dad. Great to see you. Yes.
Awesome. All right,
Awesome.
thanks. I
Thanks,
think-
everybody.
Yep.